All right, I want to share with you the 5-star apology. So, this apology often comes when you're asking the ultimate relationship question for the first time and you receive your score. Maybe it's 3 stars, maybe it's 1 star, and maybe it's 4. And you're asking, um, on a scale of 5 stars, how would you rate our relationship? And then you're asking the sidekick question, which is, okay, well, what can I do to make it better? Between those two questions, you're probably going to get some feedback, whether it's in the moment or they have to think about it and it kind of bubbles up later. So, what you'll want to do, oftentimes, probably most of the time, is apologize. So, I have 5 steps here I wanted to share. Um, you're now in the context of the 3 steps: open, deliver, follow up. This is part of the open step, and you can play in 5-star experiences. You can, you're trying to build your relationship. Everything is in the context of the ultimate relationship question, so just keep that in mind. So the first step is to share what you did wrong and that you're sorry. So if they're saying, look, um, you this hasn't been a 5-star relationship because you have this vice, or because you do this, right? So first, your first job, really, before you can get to a quality apology, is to figure out what um, what is going on from the other person's perspective that is not happy for them, and to understand that from your perspective. So you got to come to some clarity there. And then at that point, you can do that first thing, to share that you understand what you did that was wrong and that you're sorry. So it might be like, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that had such a huge negative effect on you. Like, I know that I've done this wrong, and I'm going to, I'm really sorry about it. Um, and Of course, don't say you're sorry if you don't feel it, right? So number 2 is explain how badly you feel about doing it. So, and it's not necessarily, so there's a happy medium between, like, feeling like dirt and um, and only feeling like they have chosen to be offended and that's their problem, right? So there's a happy medium there, because whatever's their problem is your problem, and you want to help if you can. Um, there's also a happy medium between, like, well, you decide that, each person makes a choice about whether they're going to be offended by certain things, or whether they're going to be choose to be happy or sad for the day, right? So there's a happy medium between, like, each person is fully accountable and responsible to choose their own level of happiness for the day. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, well, I can do an awful lot to influence the people around me for good or for bad. I can be a big jerk, or I can work as hard as I can to help other people be happy by contributing and helping to create 5-star experiences and so on. So we're kind of trying to strike a balance between those things. And when you're talking about how badly you feel about doing it, like, you do need to feel, some empathy that, hey, how are you? You do need to feel some empathy that, that what you did caused the other person discomfort or pain or boredom or inconvenience or whatever it is. Realizing that you did something, whether intentionally or unintentionally, to cause that, um, that you're going to admit, like, oh, I did. You're going to say that, and you're going to say, I feel bad that you feel bad, right? So um, it doesn't mean that you meant to do it, and then you're expressing that I didn't mean to do that, right? Um, Number 3 is to express that you're committed to a change. Just let them know, like, hey, I want to make things better in the future. I want to change the way that I interact with you. I want to improve our relationship. I want to change these 1-star experiences that you've described to me, and I want to make them into 5-star experiences. Number 4 is to tell why the change is important to you, and it's because you love them. So these steps can all be interchanged. They're not necessarily chronological, like they can be moved around. And so you're going to, hi Evie.
Hi, Daddy.
This is my daughter Evie, my 10-year-old. Evie, have I given you some good apologies?
Yeah.
I love apologizing, Evie. It's so easy to apologize. I want to apologize, and I want her to feel like I love her, and I want her to feel my commitment to change and improve our relationship. And it's just one of the easiest things you can do to cover a huge amount of ground. So expressing that you're committed to the change, and that could sound like, hey, I really want to be better. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better boyfriend, or whatever it is. Then telling why the change is important to you. That number 4 step. So it's because you love him, or you could say, I really care about you. This is really important to me because I want to have a 5-star relationship with you. So you can use whatever words that make the most sense. One caution, sometimes I hear people say that I'm coaching. Well, this is usually what I say to people because this is just how I roll. This is what makes sense to me, or this tends to work for me. And that's really nice that that's what works for you. What you need to focus on when you're making a 5-star relationship is what works for the other person. And that's really, really important that you do that switch. If you haven't made that switch yet between, oh, well, this is kind of just how I am. This is how I roll. This is what, generally works for me. This is my modus operandi, my MO. Like, you've got to get out of that pattern of thinking. You've got to start thinking in terms of what would work for the other person. What would work for my partner? What would work for my wife? What is going to create a 5-star experience for her? So once you've gotten into that mode of thinking, this becomes much easier. And then to describe a plan for how, this is number 5, describe a plan for how you're going to avoid repeating the offense. So if you go through and you're like, oh, I'm really sorry about that, and you just go and do the same thing tomorrow, or the other person is like, you're not sorry, you're just going to do it again in 10 minutes or tomorrow or next week when the opportunity arises, then that's a problem, right? So sometimes number 5 is, I'm going to figure out a way to avoid this happening again. Give me a week or give me a day, and I'm going to figure this out. Is it okay if I let you know tomorrow what I'm going to do to make sure this never happens again? Because I want a 5-star relationship with you, and I will do anything to get it because I love you, and I want you to feel that love, and I want to be united with you, and I want our relationship to be the best that it can be. So that's a 5-star apology. And those are 5, I wouldn't call them steps because they're not chronological, but 5 things that you can do to create a 5-star apology, and embedding this within the 5-star approach of what, on a scale of 5 stars, how would you rate a relationship? And then creating lots of 5-star experiences around it. This may come up when you're asking the ultimate relationship question, or it could come up when you're asking the sidekick question, well, what can I do to make it better? Or it could come up when you're doing the open deliver follow-up and you're like, hey, what would be a 5-star experience for you? And they're like, well, you could stop doing this, or you could, it could come up in the deliver and you're like, hey, I'm doing this. Is it what you expected? And they may like, no, what I had in mind was really like, you'd be doing this. And it was like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. I'm sorry. Like, and you realize like, ooh, I haven't been operating up to standard as the other person sees it. Or in the follow-up step, like, hey, was that a 5-star experience for you? And they're like, I thought about it and it actually wasn't because of this. And they're going to bring up these things. And these are gold nuggets for you to apologize and figure out a way to make it never happen again, or to at least decrease the probability that it happens again, and let them know that you're going to be trying really, really hard. And you've figured out some ways. Maybe you went and searched online, like, okay, what are some ways to break this habit or whatever it is? And then you're creating this expectation that, like, you're doing everything you possibly can to make this work, and you're willing to give up anything. You're willing to do anything, whatever it takes. And that's the kind of attitude that brings about a 5-star relationship. So I this has worked really well for me. This has worked really well for others, and I hope it works well for you. Thanks.